glad you're here for our April Everyman Live. I'm Dr. Abigail Rue, and I've got a new co-host for you, and I want to introduce and turn it over to Brad Golfany. I'm the Director of Programs, and Brad Golfany is the Director of Training and Education here at Everyman. Brad, how is it
Thank you,
going?
Abigail. Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing great today. It's spring in the air. I can feel it. I can hear the birds outside. And I'm just so happy to be here and happy to have our special guest with us.
Absolutely. And we're going to tell you about our special guest. But before we do that, we want to talk to our audience and tell them about how they can get involved in this 55-minute webinar. So we're going to walk through some really prepared questions with Brad and I, but then we're going to turn it over and let the members get involved a little bit. As a reminder, Everyman Live is open to the public. It's open to females, and it's open to your involvement. So Brad, tell them how they can get involved.
Yeah, so the involvement for the audience and everything that we do in Everyman is interactive, and we try to make it as interactive as possible. So as we are doing the interview today, I would invite everybody to get curious and post your questions in the Q&A. Remember, not the chat, please. We will pick up questions out of the Q&A only. So as you post your questions, and normally there are more questions than we can possibly answer in these calls. But go ahead and pose your questions and we will go through them. And the last 15 or 20 minutes of the call, we'll do a rapid fire Q&A with Ashanti and we'll answer your questions.
That's exactly what we're going to do. So let's get to know, you got the cat out of the bag, Ashanti. Our featured guest today is Ashanti Branch. Ashanti is a master in building healthy relationships in schools. He is a pioneer in education reform and in youth mental health with over 18 years of experience. He is the founder and executive director of the Ever Forward Club, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to seeing marginalized students graduate high school by providing them with emotional tools and mental health support. And this work with the Million Mask Movement has reached over 80,000 participants worldwide. It has also garnered Ashanti being the recipient of the 2023 U.S. Surgeon General's Medallion. He's been a keynote speaker on many platforms, a Fulbright Fellow, a 4 times TEDx speaker. His work with youth as an emotional locksmith has been featured at South by Southwest, CNN's Life with Lisa Lang, Kelly Clarkson's show, and one we're going to talk about during our questions. He was featured on the documentary which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival titled The Mask You Live In.
And let me add on to that. So, formerly a math teacher and raised in Oakland by a single mom on welfare, Ashanti found his passion while tutoring struggling students in a school with a majority African American and Latino population. It broke his heart to see 40% of them wanting to drop out at such a young age. By fulfilling deeper emotional needs to feel safe, seen, and heard, EFC has helped 100% of its student members graduate high school, 90% enroll in higher education, and 0 have become incarcerated. And something that I just want to add on to this, and it's on your website, Ashanti, but one of the most brilliant things that I saw was in your first meeting to gather students, you asked them to help you become a better teacher. I love that. It was brilliant. And it got them in the room and it got them in the discussion. So I appreciate that so much.
So Brad, why don't you kick off? Yeah, you kick off with a question and we'll go back and forth for the next 30 minutes, learning about Ashanti's life.
Sounds great. So Ashanti, I'm so curious as we introduce you into this space, and some people know you, some people don't. But one thing that I really want to ask you is just what was that moment? I'm imagining that there was a moment for you when you said, I need to do something different. I need to do something more. So what was that transformational moment for you that you can remember that actually has sparked or lit the fuse on the path that you're on right now?
Well, I would say first, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. I think it's a lots of steps along the journey. If I think about when anytime I hear the bio for me, and I was thinking about this morning, like what comes up in me when I'm hearing people read my bio, right? Because the bio is this highlight reel of all of the ups and downs of my life. It's all the ups, right? It's all the graph going up to the right, right? And I think like, but I think most of my life I'm focused on the stuff that's not going well. Like I wish I was like had my bio in my office around the wall, but when I'm really looking at my office, I'm like, well, that box needs to be emptied or that thing needs to be done, and I gotta clean that up. And I'm constantly not in the bio. And I think first I would say it started as a high school senior, dealing with some domestic stuff at home, domestic violence, and I almost threw my whole life away. That day, I never had anybody ask me how I felt. It was not even allowed to talk about it in my community. Definitely not really in my house. We didn't talk about how people felt. People tell you how they felt, but usually when they were mad. So that's usually the language you had to navigate with. But I was clear that that day when I saw my mom hit the floor, my job was to protect her. So me doing on my way to college, but about to make a really unhealthy move is why I have so much empathy for young people today, and definitely young men. And even just this past week, I mean, okay, I'm getting too excited. So let me ask another question. Let me answer the question. The question is, what was the moment? That moment sitting in the car with this paper bag, had never touched a gun in my life, but I'm getting ready to protect my mom, who I love the most. And if I hadn't had tears that found me, if my heart didn't break in the car and I started crying, I don't know where I would be today. But I'm clear that me finding those tears and realizing that I was about to throw it all away, all this hard work, I was about to throw it away for some emotions that I just didn't know how to navigate with in a healthy way. I was going to do it the best way that I knew how, which was not wise or smart way because I was in an emotional rut right there. So that's one, right? That moment of like, oh, Shanti, what's happening here? And choosing not to do anything, choosing not to act out of violence. Although that's what I was, that's what I believe the only way to fix the situation. And then I would say, I became an engineer, went to college, became an engineer. And while I was in engineering, I got an opportunity to tutor at this program called Upward Bound. And I was like, look, Saturday mornings, I don't even wake up Saturday mornings. I party Friday nights, I ain't got time to be tutoring no kids on Saturday mornings. But my buddy needed help, and I went to offer him support. I said, you got 2 months because I'm giving up 2 months of partying on Friday nights for you and these kids I don't even know. And I remember our first day teaching at Mills College, Upward Bound. I was like, I found myself like deeply connected. And throughout the week, I was plotting what I was going to do that next week because I had some students who showed up late, goofing off. Like I sacrificed a whole night of adventure, and you gonna come in here goofing off on Saturday morning? No, you not. And so my mind was like, why am I so thinking about these kids? I'm just here for 2 months, and it was the fire that began to smolder. That was why when went back to school to become a teacher. So I think it was many moments along the journey. And sometimes, you're like, which one do I feel right now was the spark? Because there were so many moments along the journey.
Wow. I love that. Thank you. Thank you.
So bringing it to where we are now, Ashanti, this is a big question. Answer it as short or as long as you want. What do you believe is the number one problem facing young men in America today?
Mm. I mean, well, yeah, number one, I don't know. There's so many number ones, right? There's sense of belonging. There's a feeling of loneliness. There's isolation. There's the comparison that we do in social media world, and it's not just young people, but adults too. I'm clear about some of those things. I think it's a lack of ability to hear things that we don't necessarily agree with. I mean, I think that, there was a time where there was only 3 or 4 channels, so you had to listen to those 3 or 4 channels. Now you got thousands of channels all night long in your phone, and so your phone will begin to customize itself to the things you want to hear. And so when we're in real life with people, and you hear something you don't want to hear, you think you can just swipe by somebody, but that's not. It doesn't work like that with humans. And so a lot of young people spend their time in these digital worlds so they can not have to hear anything they don't really want to hear, or not have to confront the realities of life that they don't really want to deal with. And I think those are some of the challenges. And I think our young men just want to be seen and heard and understood and listened to, even when they're sometimes spewing some stuff that sounds ridiculous. And as a mentor, I've heard young people spew some ridiculous things that they've regurgitated from somebody that they heard online. and I'm trying to take a breath. I got to take a breath. And I got to listen. I got to take it in. And I don't have to believe it. I have to just listen, let them speak. And then I have to ask good questions to help them reflect on what I just heard them say. But if I start being like, that's not real, that's not right, that's wrong, it may be wrong. It may not be right. But if I don't give them room to process it, then they say, okay, there's another adult I can't talk to. And then they shut down more. And so I think that we should live in a world where adults have forgotten what it was like to be a teen, and adults never lived as teens do today. Because this thing is, as much as I love my phone, if we're not careful, even as an adult, I can get sucked into a comparison loophole that I'm like, oh man, why didn't my post do so good? Why didn't my organization get it recognized? Like all the things that happen with young people, I can only imagine if I didn't have frontal lobes that I can rationalize. Okay, Ashanti, you're just being silly. You're comparing yourself to somebody you have no idea what they're like. I got enough rationalization that even when I find myself comparing, that I can back out a little bit. And sometimes I think young people they don't have a way to back out because that's the only perspective they have. So I think there's so many things. I don't know. I wish there was a one. I wish there was like the one, but I think definitely them having spaces where they can be heard and understood and listened to, and creating that safe space like we do for men, in men's circles. That's, I think, is the need. But I would say the causes are so rampant. I'm in California, so marijuana is legalized here. So look, I know young people who they smoke to wake up in the morning, they smoke at lunch to get hungry so they can eat lunch, they smoke at night to go to sleep. And you're like, brother, do you know that's an addiction? And in their minds, are like, you can't be addicted to weed, it's natural. And you're like, you've missed the definition of addiction. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so how do you help young people when they're navigating a world that's telling them all these different messages, and they can always find an answer that feels right for them, right? Even if it's detrimental to their own well-being.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. It was a setup, and there's absolutely no way I think I could answer what is the number one struggle, but you did a beautiful job giving us the lay of the land. Thank you.
As we move forward in this interview, Ashanti, I just want to applaud your enthusiasm, your passion, your body language right now. It's just like I can tell that this subject, it's like all you, like you're just fully in it. So I really want to just honor that and recognize that. Um, yeah. So as we move forward, there was a recent article in the Wall Street Journal that said women have given up on marriage. And there's lots of data out there on how women are passing men by leaps and bounds in emotional awareness and education and all sorts of areas in our culture. And so what do you have to say about those young men that are literally falling behind and getting behind? What is their future? What's happening for them, and how can we recognize their reality? Because as you talk about, to meet them where they're at is the key, right? And to give space for them to actually express. So what is the key to working with these young men that are literally getting left behind in our culture?
I mean, I think the first place is to begin with the process of giving them room to process what they're feeling. Like, I think if you are a young man who's listening to these messages out in the world, if you're listening to the sound bites on social media, where these men are like telling you, these people who are telling you, oh, they don't think you're good enough, they don't think you're tough enough, they don't think you're strong enough. Come and I'm gonna help you become stronger, tougher, better. I'm gonna help you get the girls you want to get. And I think that the way the way this new media system works is that anybody with a phone and some decent lighting, or even not, can be like, hey, I'm gonna help you get all you want to get. I know that you're a slob right now. I know that you're not getting no girls right now. I know you have no muscles right now, but I'm gonna help you. If we can make people feel, I heard a comedian say this recently, but he's like, how do we make people feel like they're not good enough? Well, we just keep reminding them that we got something to solve whatever they don't feel good about themselves at. But you know what's going to happen after the end of that? We're gonna tell them, here's how I'm gonna help you make it better. And I think the influencers out there who have gotten rich off of young people have been convincing young people that, oh, this is what's happening with you. This is what's wrong. This is those women that are the problem. So I'm gonna
Right.
teach you how to overcome that. Only a small subscription that you have to deal with to make it happen. And I think that what's happening with young people, and it's happening with younger people over and over, right? Um, I think that young men are hungry to be able to know how to communicate with girls if they're attracted to girls, and to know how to do it in a healthy way, right? I mean, if who do you learn it from? You learn it from either the older guys in your community, your uncles and parents, or whoever how your community works, or your school. And if everyone is saying, "Oh, don't worry, I'll teach you how to do it," even if it's unhealthy, I learned some very unhealthy tactics growing up about what it meant and how to do it. But since I didn't have a father in the home, I listened to the guys who seemed to know how to get girls. And some of the stuff they were telling me to do didn't seem, I know I wouldn't do it in front of my mom. I knew that some of the stuff they were telling me to say, I couldn't say it in front of my grandmother. So I knew that it wasn't feel right. It wasn't in my internalized in my value system. But oh, hey, he got a girlfriend. That girl sits on his lap during the bus ride home. So he must know something that I don't know. Right. And so I think that where do you begin? I think what ends up happening, I think some of the challenges with young men is that they want to know how to do these things. But
Mhm.
and there's plenty of people who will try and tell them to fill the gap, but we need more healthy men who are saying, "Hey, you know what? It's complex. Your first heartbreak is gonna feel like your heart is broken. Like there's no band-aid for it. There's no band-aid when you have poured your heart into someone in a relationship and then you get betrayed or you get broken up with. There's no band-aid for that. It's time, and it's realization that there could be another one. I can find another one. And so I think that sometimes we're looking for the quick fix all the time, that you should never feel embarrassed. You should never, oh, you want to ask this girl for her phone number, she tells you no, now she's going to call her all kind of names because she went from being beautiful now to being a hoe. How'd that happen? Well, you don't know how to navigate heartbreak. You don't have any tools to navigate what it feels like to have a broken heart or feel embarrassed. Or so now we don't want to feel anything negative. We've trained, and society has told them you should never feel that. You should never have anybody tell you no. And what happens when we do that? What happens when we have a society where everyone believes that they should have what they want when they want it, how they want it? And I think the world is changing, and it's been hard for some young men and some even some adult men to navigate that there's a new world today, and we're gonna have to get smarter and wiser and how to navigate it. But we're talking about emotions more than ever before, which is actually good, and we have
Mhm.
a lot more work to do, right? Because now we have people saying, "Oh, they're trying to make you into a girl because you're talking about feelings." Because we've told men that they should never talk about their feelings or how they feel. And so, what happens when a society out there is saying, "Hey, they're trying to turn you into a girl. Don't listen to them," right? And now we have all the new. So anyway, I think there's so many layers of it. I wish I mean I could go on for a while, but I'll stop there. But I just think we have to make room for young men to be able to ask those questions. Hey, how do you approach a girl? How do you have a conversation with somebody? How do you ask? How do you make that move? What do you do? Right? Like it's awkward. It's complex, and there is no one way to fit all scenarios. You know.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
I love that you focus so much. I mean, we didn't mean to give you this prompt on how male and expressing emotions is sort of a theme of what you've responded. And of course, that's sort of the core of what we believe at Everyman. So thank you for aligning with our mission. That was convenient. I want to remind listeners that as Ashanti is speaking, feel free to populate the Q&A icon with any questions you have. They'll store, and in about 20 minutes, we'll make sure we get to answer your questions. I have lots of questions myself, so I know you do too. So listeners, please populate the Q&A. And now let's ask Ashanti about the work you're doing. Tell us about Ever Forward Club. What does it do exceptionally well, and why is it garnering so much attention?
So the Ever4 Club was started. So remember, I left engineering and became a teacher. My first year teacher, I'm doing a horrible job. I mean, I'm there every day, prepared, love math. I'm a math teacher. I'm an engineer. I get excited about math, and I got really smart kids failing. So the Ever4 started with me trying to figure out why are these smart, brilliant young men in my class failing? Well, in that community, in that school, smart wasn't equivalated or didn't equal cool. If you want to be cool, you don't show that you're too smart. So they acted the way that what cool meant in that community. And I'm like, dude, you're not gonna graduate. Yeah, you may be cool as a 14-year-old, but your 18-year-old self is gonna be unemployed. I don't know what you're gonna do, right? And it was more just me trying to figure out what do I have to say to them to get them to buy into just taking caring about their education. I don't think all young people who don't do well in school is because they're not able. It's because they haven't found a reason big enough to like sacrifice the social capital it takes to sit in the seat, do the work, pay attention, listen to a teacher, and do all the social things. So that's how it first started. I was trying to invite some young men to. I said, look, you can't be failing my class. Like you're too smart. And I got a little bit of an ego that I'm here to make this thing better. I'm not here to make your life worse. So if you're failing my class, I'm not doing you any service. And that's how it all started. So fast forward, the work has been it started with those young men every week. We met every week. It was not a 8 week program. It was like we just met every week for years, as long as they till they graduated. And after they graduated, those who wanted to stay in touch stayed in touch. And I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't building a nonprofit. I didn't have any curriculum. It was lunch, talk about how you feel, get some help on the stuff that's getting you in the way of you getting it on towards graduation. It was what it was. And as it began to grow as an organization, we began to build out other movements and processes. And we're trying to help other educators. How do you at your school create a space for young people, definitely young men, to talk about how they feel in a healthy way, in a secure way? Because society still has a hard time. I mean, this is 2004. I mean, people were like, why are you creating a club for boys? Like, don't the boys have everything? That's what some of the girls were. They called us the Women Haters Club, some of the girls at my school, because on Thursdays at lunch, I had to kick them out of my class and the food was coming in and they're like, why are you kicking us out? I'm like, we have our meeting. And it was like trying to explain it in the moment, but all the time we had to like navigate that. But I said, look, I'll buy you lunch. They're like, no, we don't want lunch. We want a club. And I'm like, I don't know how to run a club for girls. What do you mean? And I think what was happening is students wanted to be a part of something. They wanted to feel connected to something. They wanted to feel like they were important. And those that's how the Ever Four Club began to grow. We grew in those ways. But I think that what we do now is we were featured in a documentary called The Mask You Live In. And in that documentary, we did an activity about masks, about emotional masks. And the mask is like, what do you? Well, I ask you, Dr. Rue, what do you say when people ask you how you're doing? When people say how you're doing, what's your first answer usually?
I'm fine. How are you?
All right, great. Brad, what's your first answer when people ask you how you're your go-to answer when people say how you're doing?
Same thing. I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah. Have either of you ever said I'm doing fine or I'm doing great, but actually you really weren't?
Of course,
Oh
most.
yeah. Yeah.
For us, we try and keep it as simple as that. We call that a mask. Now, you probably didn't tell somebody you were fine or you were good or you were great because you were trying to deceive them. There was probably good reasons. Like, Dr. Ru, why would you tell somebody you were good if you really weren't good? Or why would you tell them you were fine?
Yeah, maybe I don't know them well. Maybe I didn't want to burden them. Maybe we don't have time for a longer conversation. Maybe I'd be embarrassed to admit. Maybe I haven't even figured out myself how I feel.
Yeah. Brad, what about you? Why would you tell somebody you were doing good or okay if you really weren't?
Oh, I would say the exact same thing. I don't want to burden somebody else. I don't want to take up their time. And part of it is I don't want to connect with anybody if I'm not feeling great. So I just want to give the simple answer and move on.
Yeah. Exactly the reasons you gave is what we tell young people all over the world is that is what we call the mask. It is just as simple as that. They only see what I let them see, or they see what they make up a story about what they think they're seeing. And so, therefore, if I know that if I'm wearing a mask, then other people I meet wearing a mask, then when I get into comparison mode, maybe I better be careful because maybe I'm just comparing myself to a bunch of people's really well crafted designer masks. And the mask is a place for us to recognize there's so much more to me than people can see by just looking at me. There's more to you than people can see by just looking at you. And therefore, if we're not careful, if we can just recognize, oh, wow, so when we ask our kids how you doing after school and they say I'm fine, I'm good, they may be doing what we're doing to when they ask us how we're doing. I don't want to burden them with my stuff. I don't need to let them know how I'm stressed out. I don't let them know that I'm worried about XYZ. And we're all kind of doing it for each other. We're trying to protect each other and we're trying to like not go deeper than we need to sometimes with each other. And I think that because here in Everyman, we know about having spaces where men can take off those masks. We know what it's like to be able to not have to fake it and pretend. And so we create that process with 3 steps. They're called the Million Mask Movement. And so that's how it happens. It was built out of this need. I wasn't sitting around thinking, can I create some global activity that would it happened. It was in a room with 8 young men. We did this activity with these masks. I saw it work, which I had never saw those young men open up. And that is how the movement has carried us to today. So the things that are exciting right now is the Million Mask movement, and really engaging people all over the world and recognizing that there's so much more to each of us.
Good for
Can
you and
you
those 8 brave young men getting it started. Thank you.
I love that you brought up the film, and I want to go into the film a little bit more in just a little bit. But the Million Mask movement, I'm so curious. Could you just give us an idea of what it actually is and where it is alive today?
Yeah. So, well, I'll show you what it is. I'll show you because it's easier to show you probably. So the movement is a process where we invite people to think of write 6 words, draw 1 picture. The mask is a picture. So there's these cards we make, this like postcard, and on the card is the words. Now this may be blurry, so I'm gonna do my best. But if you look at the front of mask, this is the things that we gladly let the world see. And you look at the back of the mask, these are the things that we don't usually let people see. And so can you read this? Can you read it right
Yes,
side up
Yep,
you're
on
doing
the
yep,
great. You're holding it very
yep.
still.
We can see it.
So what does the front of the mask say on the left side?
Loving, funny, happy.
Okay. And this mask is a workshop we did last week in Sacramento. So this is what age is this student?
It's a 15-year-old male from
Okay, from
Sacramento.
Sacramento. And so that's the front of the mask of things they let the world see, loving, funny, and happy. And what is the back of the mask?
Yeah, hurt, sad, in pain, and it's got a different looking image that describes a false smile.
Yeah. And that's just one. But imagine that if this young person, this 15-year-old, and I have hundreds of them, we have thousands of them, we have a goal of engaging 1 million people, just recognize, oh yeah, there is more to me. Here's what I'm letting people see, and here's what I'm not letting people see. And we can get clear about that. If we can help young people get clear about that, we help them recognize when I start comparing myself to the people around me that I think are perfect, I may have more consciousness to say, oh, maybe they just got a good mask on. Not to judge them. It's just to say, hey, maybe they are great. Maybe their life has never been better. But what if I'm just comparing my real life story behind the scenes to that? So the movement, it's a digital version. I mean, people can make masks online. There's a website where people can go and make a mask. They're anonymous. I don't know who this 15-year-old male is from Sacramento. I just know they were willing to at least fill out the card. And so masks from all over the world show up on that website at millionmask.org. And so people can make a mask. And then, our goal is I don't know how I'm going to reach 1 million people, but I do know that there's millions of people out there every day who are just operating on a place of like, no one knows what I'm going through. And I think if we just came to awareness that there's probably more people who know what you're going through than don't but we got good at just not talking about it.
I love, I mean, what you're talking about is so in alignment with every man, and I think you already know this, is just to be real, to be honest with yourself first, and then express that out in the world. And so I love what you're doing here. One of my questions is, what is the light side of wearing a mask? I mean, we all know that masks are protections, but there may be some times where there's actually a light side to wearing a mask. And I'm just curious to look at the spectrum here.
When you say light side, say a little bit more about what you mean by that.
I mean the positive side, like where a mask is actually really serving somebody in a healthy
Mm,
way instead of an
mm.
unhealthy way.
Yeah, I mean, a beautiful question. So one of the things I think about when I think about the mask is I don't think that masks are used to deceive. I think masks are our protection. I think that is the light side. The light side says, "Oh, I'm not feeling so good today, but I have people around me who are depending on me, so I need to put on this image so that I can support the people around me." I mean, I think all of our leaders in the past who did amazing things didn't always do it because they felt like it. They did it because they felt a calling on their life bigger than what they may have wanted to always do. I run a nonprofit, and I can tell you, anyone who runs a nonprofit is not for the faint at heart. I mean, the pandemic was scary. Like I remember we're looking at the calendar and all of our events were canceled, 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 canceled. I mean, I remember the feeling. But what I had to do every day I walked in the office. This is before the world shut down. This is when we were still working, trying to make things happen. I had to pretend like I knew it was gonna be okay. Like I walked in with my coffee. Hey everybody, good morning. I just watched $80,000 of our earned revenue go out the door. I didn't cause that. I don't even know how to make that up. I don't have rich friends who are just handing me big checks. So I'm like, everyone in here has a job. They got to take care of their families. I feel somewhat responsible for that. So in the car, I put on some music, put on some good, loud, hype music, and I get myself ready because I don't really know where the next check is coming from. And so the light side is that I didn't do it to deceive them. I did it to hopefully encourage them and to hopefully help them know that I got them as much as I can. I got their back. So I think the light side, even though it's tough to do. Now, here's what I know also. I know there are fathers out there, and I'm just talking about men right now, but not just fathers, but I was raised by a single mother. So my mom did it. And she didn't, my mom didn't, I was able to read energy. So I could see the way she grabbed her purse out of her car and slammed the door when she's coming home from work. I knew whether it was going to be a good afternoon or a rough afternoon. So I recognize that, some people have better masks than others. So I learned how to put on a good mask. Everybody better act like you're working right now. That was my job at the house. So in the real life, when I'm navigating and helping others, I'm a helper. I'm a giver. And I've learned to put on that mask sometimes at the detriment of my own self.
Yeah.
And then, so as much as the light side of it is helping others, detriment is to be like, well, no one cares how I really feel. No one cares what I'm going through. So I better just keep it on for so long. And I think that's where I think it's a mixture between the light and the other side, right? I think um, that's where I see the light side. So that's answering the question about the light side and knowing. Look, I don't know. There's a show on TV that just a season called The White Lotus, and this father had a situation with his job or some like he may be broke. They're a wealthy family. They may be broke. He is desperate. He is like, I can't let them know. They can't know that their comforts of life is about to change. They can't know to the point where he was about to like this is a show. This is a show, but we know that it's not just a show. We've heard stories. We know people or we have met people who know people who have said I can't. They don't want to know that I'm a failure, so I better just end it. And I just want to. I mean, I don't get no no proceeds from the White Lotus, but it's a show that you see it happening, and you're like, sometimes we just got to see it in a movie format so we can make sense of it, like how delicate it is between everything's great and then things just fall apart. So that was a long answer, but that's how I sense it.
Actually, you could have just gone on and on. I'm just mesmerized by your answer. It was so beautiful, and you really addressed the whole spectrum of the mask, and through that, I can so much feel the protector in you, and not only the protector of others, but really a protector of the dream that you hold, the vision that you hold. I really feel that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ashanti, I want to turn our time to asking some of the audience questions. So audience, keep populating your questions in the Q&A. This first one actually parlays nicely off of this idea of the light. This is from Michael McDowell. I'm going to read it. And again, we'll try to kind of do shorter answers for this rapid fire so we can get to as many questions as we can in our remaining time. What are the strengths that are already present in our communities and in ourselves that can be the foundation to be an ally for young people, especially young men?
Yeah,
What do
I
we
think some of
already
the
have
strengths
going
are.
right?
Oh, say that again. Say the last
I was
part.
saying, what do we already have going right for us?
Yeah, I think that we have humans who have hearts who want to connect. I think we've been told so long that we shouldn't want to connect. We've been told so long that we don't need to have close friendships. That we have trained it out of boys. Studies and scientists can tell you that boys grow up where when they were first born, they're more sensitive than girls. but we
Mhm.
train all the sensitivity out of them because they're not supposed to show feelings. Suck it up, be a man up. You're 5 years old. You're not supposed to cry. Like what? And then we wonder why they become a man who's emotionless, who've learned to tuck all those emotions away. And so I think we have it at our disposal that we have humans who want to connect, and we just have to not train it out of them. It's kind of like, um, anyway, that so I think what the beauty is that if you go to any 5-year-old and say, "Hey, what do you feel right now?" Most of them, I mean, five, they're early. There's still some training in there, but they'll tell you. They'll cry when they get hurt. They'll finish crying and they go play and they're back to it. But when we train out the opportunity to be able to cry, then we wonder why they walk around with their hands all clenched and like you're like, what's going on with you? Nothing. And you can see it on their face, but they know that no one wants to hear it or no one's willing to hear it. So I think we have at our disposal humans who care about each other, who are who grow up loving, and we that stuff gets trained out of people. I think I don't think people grow up just being like, I mean, if there's a lot of, you can always find an example to counter what I'm saying. But I think we grow up caring about each other, and I think we have to like keep doing that. So that's what I think. That's the way I think is at our disposal. And adults who, if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, be inquisitive, be curious. I was a math teacher, but I had my students writing often. Like, how are you feeling? How was your weekend? Go 1 minute, write. This is math class. Why are we writing? I'm like, well, we're gonna get to the math. Don't worry. But I wanted them to know that I wanted to know how their weekend was, what was going on with them, because I knew that there was more to my class than math. And so I think it's just really recognizing that we're all humans that are multifaceted. And some students hated math, and I wasn't mad at that student. You know, I love those students just as much as the student who was the top of the class. But I wanted them to know that their grade didn't make them who better or less in my eyes. But I think we got to be careful how we do that.
I
Well,
love that the default mode is the human experience and just don't train it out of them. So what we've got going for us is that our inner system is correct.
Yeah.
Brad, take the next question.
Ashanti, I've got another question from Christian Long, and I love this question because it does tie into some things that you are doing now as far as professional development, teacher training, retreats, all this stuff. So let me read the question. What do you feel most adults must first reflect upon or learn about themselves in order to successfully mentor young men and boys in these days?
Mm. Now, I know a Christian Long, so I don't know if this is that Christian Long, but if it's not Christian Long, you just brought a man to my mind who I'm a big fan of. So let me say, I think what adults have to do is we have to navigate our own mask first. When I asked you to, like, have you ever told somebody you were good and you weren't good? You said yes. Like that's our own mask. And now that maybe we can be more reflective. Like, oh, when somebody asks me, can I tell them? Can I tell them actually how I'm doing, how I'm feeling? Can I tell them more? I think adults have to do their work first. Look, in our work, like everyone who wants to be a mentor is probably not ready to be a mentor. Because if you're not ready to do your work, if you think, well, I have a lot of life experience, I'm gonna help a kid have, you know, get a good job or something like that. You may be a good business mentor. You may be a good mentor of career, but if you can't help a young person navigate failure and challenge and struggle, like most teachers who mostly all went to college, if you were always a good student, how do you identify with a bad student? So I think adults have to be like, oh, what am I missing here in this connection? If it's my partner, if it's my kids, if it's my community, if it's my service work, we all I think we all need to like sit down and make a mask. And then when we are connecting to others, and we know that there's something more going on to know that they probably don't feel comfortable to tell us. And how do we build the trust in them? How do we build the trust in those in each other to say, oh, there's so much more going on? That's what I think. So yeah, I think the adults have to do their work first. As a mentor, if I'm not willing to go first, I have to go into a room of students and say, hey, tell me about where you're struggling, and I'm not willing to even be honest about my own struggles. I think I can be quickly turn into a hypocrite, and kids will read right through it, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're fake," and then you'll get shut down. They'll shut down on you quick. Now I'm talking about young men compared to men, but we know that if anybody who's on a men's team, if we just made everybody come and be like, "You tell us your stuff," and we're the perfect ones here. We're already fixed. So you you're the only one. You're the broken one. So we're here to save you, right? I think people would quickly read through that and be like, yeah, you're not really real.
Love it. Love it.
Advice.
Thank you so much. Abigail?
Yeah, the next question is posted anonymously. Does Ever Forward have a program to assist young men into achieving financial accomplishments?
Yeah, great question. So we, one of our alumni, so one of our first young men in our program, Eduardo, his wife, she's a financial, I don't want to say her title wrong, but we are now, so we have an online community that is really about helping advocates for young men. And so they're going to be providing resources for parents to help their children about financial literacy. So that is one thing we're starting to do right now. Always in our work, we've tried to figure out where young men are interested in, what are their goal, and a lot of them they want to make money. So, but when we were starting Ever Forward, there was no curriculum. It wasn't like, oh, here's the financial curriculum, here's the educate. It was like getting you through high school is the primary goal. Have fun doing it. What are your next steps and goals to start preparing for that? So yeah, the answer is yes, and like it's our current work is doing more pop-ups in school. So we do 8-week long courses. That's our the Young Men's Health groups we're doing right now in San Francisco Unified. And so there's lots of components. I think some young men like they think they want to be rich, but they when you ask them, okay, what's your money plan? They're just like, I just want to be rich. You're like, well, no. So I think like we first start with just what is your ability just to navigate who you are? Who are you? Like, what is the money going to do for you? And so, yeah, the answer is it's something we're always looking at doing for our young people. And our work starts with just the first: who am I? Where am I going? What are my goals? What are the barriers in the way of those goals? And once we can get them breaking down some of those walls, then we go forward with that. So that's the answer is no, but yes.
But soon, coming soon.
But soon, but coming soon. Yeah, it's happening. It's happening right now.
Love it. Love it. So, Ashante, but before we go into how we can help or how our listeners can actually get involved, I do have a question for you, and it ties into an earlier question that I asked about men falling behind. And what I want to, so much of the data talks about these young men that just don't have good role models in their life. They just don't have anybody that they can look up to, somebody that can give them guidance. And I look at you as a man that is modeling this for all of us. Like you're holding this for all of us. So the question is, how can more men step up and lead as a mentor in the world today? Because the data is clear that it's needed. And yet, besides my own children, it's hard to do for a lot of others. So what advice do you have for us men of just to step into the ring and start mentoring?
Yeah, there is a national mentoring organization, mentor.org. I'm not sure how you find them, but in California, Mentor California, they are doing a lot of work with us to really help begin in training mentors. We've always tried to figure out how do we get mentors in to do the work, but a lot of times people when they come and they say, I want to be a mentor, and you say, okay, cool. Have you done some of your own work? And they're like, what do you mean? And you're like, I say, did you go through rites of passage growing up? Nope. And you're like, oh, because I think the idea of mentor is that I've been through some stuff, so I can help other people go through some stuff. And I believe that there's a lot of truth to that. I think what adults have to be able to do and men have to be able to do is say, if I've not gone through an initiation weekend, if I've not gone through a weekend I've done some of my own deep work of the soul, am I ready to help a young person navigate what they're going through? I may. I started Ever Forward Club before I even knew about men's work. I didn't even know. I knew that what I was creating for them felt right, but no one had ever invited me to a men's circle. So when I went to my first men's circle, 6 years after I started the Ever Forward Club, I was like, this is what I've been trying to build. I had never even seen it. So I think that first men just have to be willing to say, you may not have to do an initiation weekend, but have you done enough of your own willingness to navigate all the parts of yourself? And I think that's the work. I mean, I think that's where it starts, right? Any man out there who's like, you know what, I'm too busy with my own kids. Well, maybe it's just you're inviting your kids to come bring some of their friends around, and you're having some healthy conversations about a topic. Maybe it's not like you're gonna go out and get a second job. Maybe you're just gonna like, look, my kids know I love them. I know that they have friends who may not have the same positive relationships. So we'll have a pizza party and we'll talk about some real talk. We're gonna talk about more than just sports and the weather and fishing and backgammon and whatever the other things are. We're gonna talk about like heart. But if you're not ready to talk about your own heart, then it's probably gonna be hard for you to get others to do that too. So I think it's really starting with those processes of like, I want to be a mentor. Do I know? Do I have a wide range? If you there's an emotion wheel. If you just go on Google and type in emotion wheel, you'll see this wheel of all these emotions. Like figure out how many of them you are in touch with. Now you don't have to know the definition of them, but just oh yeah, I feel some of the green over here, some of the yellow over here, some of the red over here. Like, but if you don't have a variety of emotions that you can connect with, it makes it hard to like go up to someone and say, "Hey, how you doing?" And when they say, "I don't know," we're like, "Of course you know what you feel. Of course you know," because we think that it's just as easy as just coming up with the word of how we think we feel in the moment. And I think it's about that process of the work. It's the work. I think it's constant work, right? I've been doing my men's work since 2010, and I'm still doing my work. I was at my men's meeting last night, and I was like, oh, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this, right? Like even right earlier, I'm tearing up, right? I'm like feeling those that pain. I, there was a time in my life where that tear ducts was locked down. There would be
Yep.
no way you'd have saw a tear come out of my eye ever. But I have allowed myself to say I'm fully human. I'm a comprehensive man. I feel all.
Did you freeze on us?
Got a little freezy here.
It was such a buildup, such a wonderful momentum.
Yeah. Everybody's on the edge of their
Like,
seat.
There you are. You're back.
did I
We had a
freeze? I
little,
froze on you?
but it was a beautiful
You
freeze.
froze
It
for
was kind
about
of
5 seconds.
dramatic.
Yeah. It was perfect timing. It was
Oh
perfect.
man. Well, let's go to the next thing. Maybe that was a sign. It was a sign. It was a sign.
All right.
We probably have time for just one question left each. This last question posted by Nick Satterfield, I'm going to kind of expand it. So you talked about accidentally stumbling onto Ever Forward Club with 8 students and kind of kicking the girls out because you wanted to help the men. And so the question is, now it's happened for so many years and you've got the Million Mask Movement. I mean, you've really grown into this huge influencing for the good organization. Do you stay with mainly men, mainly men of color? Do you branch out to women to include different sexualities? The specific question asked about trans. So just where is the movement now and what is your focus? What do you feel you have the most influence on?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay? I want to make sure my internet
Yep.
is not getting okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that the global movement is for everyone. So our work started in 2004 with young men as a math teacher. It has expanded and grown. So, but our person to person work is usually with young men. That when we go to schools and do assemblies may be co-ed, but our direct service work is right now mentoring work with young men. The global movement, which is what we're building, is there. It's everyone. It's everyone is going to navigate these masks that we wear. So that is how that works. You know, when a school like there's a program we have at a school around the corner from here, the Masks, Emotions, and Math Project. We invited the whole school. It was an open invitation to the whole school, and all of those students in that program are girls, or young women. Excuse me. They're high school students. So it's like those who are called to it are called to. I think we're interviewing interns right now for the summer. I think more than half of our applications are women. And so it's really the mask doesn't hold itself to just men, but what we know is that when we go to a school, we ask the school, where are your biggest needs? Where are the biggest needs you have right now of supporting people to show up more fully themselves? And a lot of schools are resonating that they need support for their young men. They just don't invest in it. And sadly, they only invest in it after a tragedy. And what we're hoping is that people will be more proactive and not wait till some tragic situation before they then say, okay, now we should do something. And you're like if you're when I walk into a school, wherever I'm at around the country, I feel stuff. I feel energy. I feel I feel the walls. I look at the what's posted on the walls. You can feel it. I mean, if you're a person who can feel these kind of things, and so when I was in Nashville and I did a workshop, a young man was sitting next to me. He was just kind of looking down at the ground, and we had a little dialogue when during the breaks. And I said, tell me about you. Tell me what's happening with you. He's like, well, I don't really talk about how I feel. No one wants to hear that. And I was just like, yeah, thank you for that. And I just left it right there. I said, thank you for that. And knowing that he didn't have to tell me that, but he had found enough trust that I can tell you that I don't get to talk about how I feel here. I'm supposed to be an athlete. I'm supposed to be tough. I'm supposed to be strong. I'm 6'1" and I'm in the seventh grade. I'm supposed to be a future Hall of Famer already. I don't get to have a bad day, a tough day. I don't get to not want to go to practice. I don't get to, and so I think him knowing what that was like made it really clear for him. So I think that's just how it works. So I think anyway, the answer is yes. The Million Mask Movement is everyone, and our direct service work is young men directly.
Thank you. Brad, for the final question, and then we'll let Ashanti tell us how we can keep up with his movements and his latest work.
Yeah. So Ashanti, as I take you in, it feels like you have so many irons in the fire. There's a lot of things that you are doing right now. And so if there was one focus that you have right now in your life that's just very structured, one focus, what is that focus?
Man, I would say the 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 focus right now is finishing this book. I have been in my mind, in my journal, talking about writing a book since 2010. When I did my first men's weekend, um, it was a story already kind of percolating. But I'm like, who got time? I got time for that. I'm a teacher. I'm an administrator. I don't have time for that. Last year, the book was going to come out. I put it on pause because I need to do some more work for the organization. And I think what I've been having to work through is um, uh, making it important enough that I have something to say about these topics. I believe I do. And when you put a book out in the world, you're like, hey, look at me. And I struggle with that sometimes, right? Even though I force myself to do it. I probably am more kind of like introvert than extrovert, but I can push extrovert out, right? So I think the book has been a challenging one. And my mom wrote a book this year on my birthday in December, telling me like some of the secrets and stories of her life that I never knew.
Wow.
And she wrote that in December, and it really put a fire to say, get this thing finished. Like I mean, she didn't write a book that's published. She made a book, a scrapbook, right?
What a
And
gift.
oh man,
So cute.
and I learned, about what happened right before my birth when my father died. My father died before I was born, so I didn't know some of the details of the story, even at 50 years old. Like she had held those stories so close to her own heart that she didn't even let me know them. And I think
Wow.
it's something about knowing more of your own story, your origin story helps you to be able to say, okay, there's a lot of journey in here, and so yeah, I hope I can inspire someone else to not wait till they're 50. Um, but
I
that's the big
love it.
project right now.
So
And I
if we
know we're
want
gonna,
to reach,
oh, I'm sorry. I know we're gonna segue into this, but do you have a title for your book?
Yeah, the title of the book is called Diary of a Confused Educator,
Oh, I love it.
and
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 this
how
one,
can our listeners read it? When and where and how can we follow up with you, Ashanti, after this webinar?
yeah. So you go to everforwardclub.org. It'll be posted there, and if you're on social media at all, my channel is Branch Speaks on all the channels. But yeah, it's coming. It's coming in the next 2 weeks. So May 1st, the plan was I'm gonna have a box delivered before May 1st. So um, I'm speaking at a mental health summit in LA May 1st. So If the box will either arrive here in home or I'll have it shipped to LA where I'm going to be. So that's the plan, and we're in the home stretch. It's a scary. I'm self-publishing, so it's not like no one's been pushing. The deadline is on me to like push it, right? Which is easy to keep putting to the side when you always put others first. And I think the goal of the book is also deciding and believing that that I matter enough to make myself first, which is not an easy sentence to even say. I'm having fun myself trying to say the sentence is hard to say, but doing it is even harder. But that's the next chapter of this journey. So
I see we posted in the chat both the Instagram, also your website, and we're going to be waiting with bated breath for the book. So we will, as soon as it's out, we're going to post it in our EVRYMAN community. You've got a bunch of fans and supporters here. As we close out Ashanti, I'm going to talk about the next months and Brad, but I'll let you two kind of say your farewells and then I'll say what's happening next month.
Oh, for me, it's just such an honor to have you. I've seen you in the Everyman space. I know you've been here. I just connecting with you in this way and getting your world in this way has been really, really powerful. So thank you so much for sharing.
And thank you all for having me. Thank you everyone for listening. And I wish everybody the best. The quote we tell people in our work, it says the longest distance that most people travel is the 18 inches between their head and their heart. And in our work, we're inviting people to stay connected to their hearts. Don't get stuck in your head. And so it's a long journey. It's right here, but it sometimes takes a long time to get out of there. So thank you. Thanks for having me, and I wish everybody the best.
Thank you, Ashanti. The 18 inches. I like it. Listeners, we thank you for your time. We hope you've enjoyed yourself, certainly as much as I have. I know Ashanti's the teacher I know we wish we all had, particularly in our math class. And I know you're going to be excited for our next month's guest expert. We'll do it again, same time, same format. It'll be May 21st. 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 o'clock Pacific. And our guest this time is a gentleman by the name of Bill Broyles. How many of you have watched the hit TV series China Beach? Maybe seen some of the popular movies like Castaway or Polar Express, maybe Apollo 13. Well, Bill Broyles was the writer, the creator, the man behind all of these huge hits and many more. In addition to being a very impressive military background, motivational speaker, spiritual guru, there's a lot we can learn about Bill Broyles' fascinating career, and I hope you join me next month. Between now and then, you can go to everyman.com to see what we're up to, and just appreciate you tuning in to hear more from our wonderful Ashanti Branch and all of the wisdom he had to depart. Thank you so much for tuning in. You all take care and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Bye-bye.